This is Creepy and Geeky. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's weekly chat with Donna, we're talking about the stuff we got into this last week. How's it going, Donna?
It is going well, Robert. We just had a storm that
Yes.
kind of half-ass breezed through South Carolina. So, we came out unscathed. Everything was great.
That's
We didn't
good.
lose power, much to my dismay, because I was hoping, working from home, if we didn't have power, I didn't have to work. But um I had to work.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, it's good. Just excited because we're very close to October and it's getting
Yes.
to be that time. I mean, I watch horror movies year round, but
Of
I really
course.
go kind of into overdrive in October. So I'm sure my husband is going to be like contemplating divorce papers at that point.
If he hasn't already, he won't
He
now.
he's thinking about it, I'm sure, because I already pulled out all the decorations and I'm trying to, situate stuff. And he's like, "Could you please leave the bedroom not?" I'm like, I can't. I gotta have horror stuff in the
The
bedroom.
bedroom's the best place for it. Come on, what are you talking
That's
about?
that's my best spot for it. I need
Right?
a safe space, and I already sleep with a face hugger, so he knows this is this is part of my life now. But it's been good. How's it been going for you?
It's going on all right. Yeah, no, we that same storm whipped through our area too, but thankfully we just got some wind and rain and we didn't
Hmm.
even lose power either, so it wasn't too bad for us. Other parts of Georgia got hit kind of bad and have been
Hmm.
without power and stuff. But thankfully we were some of the few people who just got by unscathed. So hopefully they get everything fixed and everything for everybody else.
Right.
So, but yeah, no. Otherwise, it's been good. It's just been another week. I've been a little too busy to go out to the movies this week, so I didn't get to go see anything out there. But I did watch a couple of trying to catch up on 2024 movies.
Hmm.
Still, gotta make sure there's nothing gets by me to put into the top 10. Um, I honestly don't think there's going to be much else to like drop into that top 10. You never know. There might be a couple of things. There's some interesting things coming. Don't get me wrong. So some of those might jump in there. But so far nothing I've watched has really gotten up in there. But yeah, no, I'm trying to catch up on the streaming stuff right now as well because there's been a bunch of stuff either dropped on streaming or was in theaters and is now on streaming, that kind of stuff.
So what did
So
you watch?
so I did watch two things that we've talked about previously on our weekly chats. I watched the movie Humane by Caitlin Cronenberg.
Hmm.
And that was pretty good. I didn't love it, but I liked it a lot. I thought it was a neat idea, and it was well executed. I definitely was disappointed in the end on who died. Um, because there were definitely some characters in there that should have died
Oh
more.
yeah.
And so that part was disappointing, but I guess in a way, very realistic. Um, so so in the end it made sense, I guess, in a way. But yeah, no, it was real well done and the performances were really good. So
Hmm.
that in itself was enough for me. So it was pretty good. Didn't crack my top 10, but definitely really good. And then I also saw the movie Eight Eyes, which is now on Shutter. Um, and Humane was also on Shutter, by the way. But Eight Eyes just dropped on Shutter, I think, this last week.
Hmm.
And that one didn't really work for me. It's fine. It's not a bad movie. But the kind of surreal, like kind of slow burn, kind of nothing really going on for a while type of thing doesn't really work for me. It was fine, but it didn't wow me at all. So
I haven't watched it yet. The
yeah,
trailer looked interesting to me, so that's what makes
yeah.
me want to still take a look at it. Um,
Yeah, and
But
I think it'll work for some people. People who are really into this kind of movie and stuff like that. I don't think it'll
mhm,
be. I think it'll find its audience pretty well. I know others who've seen it who love it, who think it's a really great movie, but
mhm,
and it's not terrible. It's not like I hated it or anything like that. It didn't fully work for me. It's just not my jam.
right.
So, but yeah,
I will
no,
check it out for myself.
yes, go check it out for sure. I know you were interested in it because you were the one who brought it to me. So I was like, oh yeah,
Right.
hey, let me add that to my list and let me go check it out. So I was trying to work up from like, the movies that have the lowest runtime to the higher runtimes,
Mhm.
um, and were fairly easy to watch. So, but yeah, I actually am in the middle of watching Lovely Dark and Deep on Tubi right now. Um, it's with Georgina Campbell, and she's like a ranger in the woods and stuff. And so that's got
Oh,
some,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's got some creepy vibes to it, which is it's pretty good so far. But I'm in the middle of watching that currently.
I completely forgot about that movie till you said that, and then I've just remembered the trailer. I'm remembering it now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's pretty good so far. Definitely check it out. It's on Tubi now. So, but what did you bring me this week?
So, you know me, I'm bringing a bunch of trailers. However, I wanted to talk to you about one thing that I heard this week, and I'm only bringing it up because I know that you have watched the show,
Okay.
that the Chucky show got canceled.
Yes. Yeah.
What the business? What's going on?
I think it was just too expensive for Sci-Fi and USA to continue. I think that was the general gist of it. That yeah, it's just I'm disappointed. It was a fun show. And I know Down Mancini will bring back Chucky in some way. So I'll be excited for whatever the next thing is for that. And maybe they'll revive the show on another platform or something like that.
Yeah, hopefully another
That's
like a
my hope.
streaming service will
Yeah.
pick it up.
Yeah. So that's my hope. I think it was just the economics on it. Just it wasn't making them enough money for the money that they were putting out for it.
I
So
think it would do well on Peacock. I think that would be a good thing.
that's I mean Peacock is the overall network. Like
Oh, they're
NBC,
over
yeah,
Sci-Fi and
and
USA.
Sci-Fi and USA
Oh,
network is owned by NBC Universal. So
oh,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
sucks.
So that the Peacock was actually getting the well, it was a whole complicated thing that but this last season was definitely being put out the day after it aired on those other networks. The previous season didn't get put out until a year later.
Oh
So
my goodness.
it's
See, I this is
very
why I'm
frustrating as a
hesitant.
fan of the show. So
This is why I'm hesitant to start shows because I'm always afraid they're going to get canceled. And I really wanted to start watching this show because everybody's been
yeah.
raving about it, but now I'm like, oh really?
I would
But
suggest
hopefully,
I would suggest still watching it because it's part of the whole overall Chucky storyline. Like
right.
because all the Chucky movies are connected and this is connected to all of that. It's a great continuation of all that. It's not like something else that gets that is a show and then gets canceled and isn't worth watching. Well, I don't say that because there's probably plenty of shows that are worth watching, but
Hmm.
like if a show doesn't get to continue, it's kind of frustrating. But I have a feeling that in some way, shape, or form, we'll get a resolution to this story at some point. Don Mancini will find some place to tell his story. He always has, and I'm sure he always will. So, which will be cool. So,
Yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion about it. My daughter said
yeah,
it ended on a not really a cliffhanger, but kind of sorta. And she's like,
yeah,
"Oh, I hope they like at least make a movie to like wrap." I
yeah,
said,
yeah.
"Well, don't tell me what happened." She's like, "Mom, I want to tell you, but I can't because you don't know anything that's going on."
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that's a shame. I after all of the momentum and all of the buzz, I just I don't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, yeah, I'm like, it's frustrating for sure. It was a great show and I loved all the stuff that they had brought into it and brought back characters from some of the earlier stuff and everything. And so hopefully they'll, get back to it. That's um, my hope, like I said, is just that they can find some new home for it. That'd be the best thing is if they can find a new place to continue the series at the very least, even if it's only for one more season, so they can kind of
Right.
wrap up some stuff. So anyway, but yeah, so Let's see. So I've got some other trailers to talk about. This week, they dropped a new show trailer that will be coming on. What is this? I think it's actually Peacock, as we were saying. Yeah, Peacock. So they are doing a new show called Hysteria, which is here's the premise. It says set during the satanic panic of the 1980s, a beloved varsity quarterback's disappearance causes whispers of occult activity and satanic influence throughout the town. Dylan Campbell, Jordy, and Spud, a trio of outcasts in a struggling heavy metal band called Death Crunch, decide to capitalize on the town's sudden interest in the occult by rebranding themselves as a satanic metal band, which leads to them becoming the targets of the town's witch hunt. So, the really cool thing is Bruce Campbell plays the police chief. So, there's also some other cool people in there. Julie Bowen's in it, Anna Camp,
Hmm.
Garrett Dillahunt is in it. So yeah, so it should be a fun show. I'm looking forward to it. It looks like it's got just the right amount of like creepy and kind of goofy going on it. So
And that'll be interesting for people who don't understand what it was like during the height of the satanic panic,
oh my
how
god,
people were.
yes. Like I'm serious. Like people really don't understand how fucking weird and bad it was for us in the 80s. Like just it was the most bizarre thing that was going on. Like it was just bizarre. And yet we were still
Everything.
between the satanic panic and the stranger danger stuff and the
Yeah.
kidnappings and everything else. I don't know how our parents were still letting us go outside, but they did. They were just like, all right, have fun, fend for yourself. I hope you've learned some skills out there in these many years of
Yeah, pretty much. I
yeah,
mean, it was a survival of the fittest, pretty
it
much.
really was.
Your kid wasn't smart enough to come home. I'm sorry. That's just how it was. So I'm sorry. And it's, I could see a parent that has multiple, if you have multiple kids, you probably by the
Yeah.
third, the second kid, you're like, whatever. My mom had one, and trust me, I was all over the county.
Yeah.
Like she
Yeah.
had no clue what I was up to 90% of the time because she worked, my parents worked. So
Yeah.
I was a latchkey kid, they weren't home, and anything and everything possible could have happened.
That's
So yeah,
crazy.
the fact that I made it to 53 is shocking. I will be honest with you.
No doubt. The fact that we made it out of the 80s is shocking.
Yeah.
Because some of us didn't. Some of us didn't make it out. Like
Some of us didn't make
I don't
it.
want to make light of it, but some of us
No,
didn't.
but
So,
but true.
but like that, and that's the thing. Like with the amount of stuff that you hear about the 80s and stuff like that,
Hmm.
you would be surprised that so many of us made it out. And this is why Gen X goes hard and you don't want to fuck with us.
No, you
So
definitely do.
just
We're
saying,
indestructible at this point,
just
man. I
saying.
mean,
Like
between
every
the shit that we drank and the shit that we were eating and all of the stuff that we did, y'all don't want the smoke. You don't want this.
yeah.
But yeah, nobody
Y'all don't
understands the
understand just what we
satanic
went
panic.
through. Yeah.
Hopefully the show will give them an idea of how nutty it was during the
Uh
80s.
like I think it'll give them a little taste, but I think it's gonna be played more for laughs
Oh,
and
for
stuff like
laughs,
that.
definitely.
It's just like the recent season of Stranger Things where that kind of came into play too, where like, Eddie was, being vilified as being a
Right.
Satanist and stuff. And so it's just yeah. Oh man, it was a crazy time, is all I gotta say. But it looks like an interesting show, so definitely gonna have to check that out for
I'm
sure.
looking forward to that for
Yeah.
sure.
All right. So what else you got for me?
Well, I saw this week that the Last of Us season 2 trailer dropped,
Oh,
and
I did not watch
oh
that yet. I need to
my
watch that
gosh, I
trailer.
cannot wait for the show to come back. I did a series of
Yeah.
episodes every week, and I am so excited. But this season is going to rock people in a way that they're not going to expect. When you get a chance to watch a trailer, it's uncanny how everything looks like the game. Once again, I did not play this game, but I watched my son play this religiously,
Yeah.
and I got involved. It's like, some days he'd start playing and I'd be like, no, no, don't play it until I can watch because I need to see what's going to happen.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
you get invested in these characters. So it looks like it's going to be incredibly dark. People who, if you have not played the game, it's going to be heartbreaking for some people in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Um, so that trailer dropped. It looks amazing. They said it was a teaser, but it's like almost 3 minute long trailer. But um, yeah, new characters. Jeffrey Wright's on this season. I'm excited
Oh,
to see
okay.
him.
That's
We've
cool.
got a lot of extra people that are going to be added into the fold, and a lot more of the clickers and all of the mutated. Oh my gosh, some of the scenes in there, I almost jumped out my skin. And I remember these scenes, but it's very creepy. That
Yeah.
world in itself is very creepy. But it's gonna be a lot of fun. I can tell you that. So if you
Yeah.
haven't seen the trailer, definitely go watch it and check it out.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the first season, so I'm definitely looking forward to the second season. I'm excited to check it out. I saw that the trailer dropped, but I wasn't sure if it was actually a trailer or not, or it was just some weird promo thing. And so I'm glad it was a trailer. I'll have to go check it out
Hmm.
now for sure. All right. Well, the new VHS, there's a new entry in the VHS series. I think we talked about it briefly before.
Hmm.
It's called VHS Beyond. And a trailer for it just dropped this last week as well. Um, and it's coming out the actual thing, the what's it called? The movie itself is coming out this month or this October, this coming up month on Shutter. So definitely go check out that trailer and check out the show, the movie when it comes out. We got one of the sequences is written uh, written by Mike Flanagan and directed by Kate Siegel. So that's the one I'm most excited for.
Yeah,
Everybody
me
else,
too.
everybody else, I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. But like the Kate Siegel one, I'm like, yes, let's do it. So
So that actually is dropping October 4th. So,
yeah, like really soon. So like next
yeah.
week. Yeah. But yeah, no, there's definitely some there's a segment directed and written by Christian Long and Justin Long also. So yeah, so your mileage may vary for him. I like Justin Long. But yeah, no, it looks really interesting. And the VHS movies, I'm always kind of like there's always like one segment in
Hmm.
each one that I like. Um I've never like loved every bit of any of them.
Yeah, I don't think
There's
I
usually
have
just
either.
yeah, there's usually just one or two segments in each one that I'm just like, okay, yeah, these are pretty good. These are worth continuing to watch. Um, but yeah, I have a feeling it'll be the Kate Siegel one
Yeah.
this time for sure.
Yeah,
So
I'm most looking forward to that, and it looks like they have her entry being the last one. So
yeah,
that already
probably.
tells me that that's going to probably be one of
Save
the
the best
best
for
ones.
last. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. What else you got for me?
So the other trailer that I saw this week was the new one from Ryan Coogler,
Yes, that
Sinners.
was on my list too. So
Okay, well,
I'm
good.
glad.
Then we
I'm
can talk
glad.
about
I
that.
was gonna. I was skipping it to make sure that I was like, I'm sure she's seen it. I want to make sure she says it. So I didn't want to steal
Uh,
your thunder.
no, 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 it's fine. I mean, we sometimes we do overlap, and that's a good
Yeah.
thing. But that trailer dropped. I'm really interested. Of course, Woomy is in it.
Yeah.
Haley Steinfeld's in it, which is interesting, and it looks it looks interesting. I always like what Ryan Coogler does anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about Michael B. Jordan playing twins. I don't know how I feel about him with this country accent, but I'm excited, especially if it has to deal with vampires.
Yeah.
The
Vampires in like the 30s.
Yeah, that's kind of anytime you throw monsters in a period piece, I'm all for that shit. Please do more
Yeah.
of that. But it looks good. It looks like it'll be at least entertaining and a lot of fun. And I'm sure a lot of ladies will go because I could get two Michael B. Jordans in one
Right.
movie. But what were your thoughts on it when you saw the trailer?
I wanted more. I wanted like it because it's I think a teaser, it just kind of shows you just like the bare minimum and just kind of
Hmm.
like gives you like I just wanted to know more about the story a little bit
Right.
more. That was all. Like it does that thing where it just kind of glosses over and just kind of gives you little snippets, like it doesn't really tell you a lot. Um, and so that it looks interesting, but that's all I can go on it so far. I mean, they don't show you anything, like they don't show you anything necessarily vampiric in it either.
No, they don't show you
Um,
anything alluding
no,
to
you
that.
don't
Like if I
even
hadn't have
you don't even yeah,
frightened,
yeah,
go ahead.
if you don't read that it's a vampire movie, then you don't
Then
know
you
that
have
it's a
no
vampire
idea
movie.
what's trying
Yeah.
to break into these people at this
Yeah.
little place that they're in. So yeah, that I wish they had shown a little bit, or at least
Right.
shown somebody with fangs or something.
I
But
think that'll be
I think it'll be good. I mean, I think people will go see it just
yeah.
because this is kind of out of his normal type of films. Even though he's always working with Michael B. Jordan,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like this is something a little different. And since we're not getting a Blade movie anytime soon,
Yeah, right. Somebody else
but
has to
yeah.
make it. No, and I think that's what's interesting about it too, is like, set it during the, 20s or 30s, whenever it is. Like let's put in some socio-political context for that as well. Um, I think that'll be interesting. The fact that Wunmi's in it, hell yeah. Um, Whenever she's in anything, I'm down for that.
I know
Uh,
that's right.
Ever since Lovecraft Country, um, which of course I can't go back and watch anymore. But um, but yeah, no, it definitely looks good. I'm excited for it, and hopefully in the next trailer will give us some more info on it and kind of tease some more vampire stuff,
Right.
so we'll actually know for sure whether or not it is, even though everything that I read about it even before the trailer said that it was going to be a vampire movie.
Hmm.
So all right. The last thing I have is another trailer. And this one is for the movie Ballerina, although it's being called From the World of John Wick Ballerina. Which is like, no, don't do that. Please just put it Ballerina, and then you can put From the World of John Wick after it, but don't make it From the World of John Wick
But see,
Ballerina.
this is the
That's
argument. Before you get into it, this is the argument I have with Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. If you just named it
yeah,
Demon Knight, it would have done so much better,
yeah, I
in
think
my
so.
opinion.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
yeah.
gonna say. Go ahead with your ballerina.
You could have been like Demon Knight, a Tales from the Crypt movie, so something like that, where it was like like the
Yeah,
subtitle of it, not the main title of it.
exactly.
But yes, so Ballerina is set in the world of John Wick. It involves a woman who has grown up, I guess, as part of Angelica Houston's character's ballet school or whatever. Angelica Houston has played a character in some of the previous John Wick movies.
Mhm.
It also stars like Keanu Reeves is in it. What's his name?
Ian McShane.
Ian McShane's in it. Lance Reddick in his final role is in it. Yeah, so it's gonna be a good movie, and Anna de Armas is the main character, which like she's great in everything I've seen her in. She's been great. So I'm excited for this. It looks good. I like the John Wick movies. I'm a big action guy. So I like flashy action like that. So
Hmm.
I'm down for it. So it looks good.
I mean, every girl wants to be a ballerina slash assassin. You didn't know
Right?
that?
Right. I think it's great too, because she's like, I want to do what you do, and when she's talking to John Wick, and he's like,
Oh
I,
yeah,
I think you're already doing it,
you're already
and
doing.
yeah, so it's great. It was like so good.
Yeah,
I was
it
like, all
looks
right,
good.
this is awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Now, I do want to ask, have you watched the Continental
I
that
have not
spinoff?
watched that.
I have not
Um,
watched it either. I've seen all of the John Wick movies. I know I'm going to watch this movie, but I've not watched that series. I don't know
the
why.
part of the problem with me is that Mel Gibson's in it, and
Ooh.
I can't. Yeah, I just like I don't think he's in it very much, so I'm gonna try to give it a chance here. But TV shows are like this weird thing for me right now. Is I just haven't been able to sit down and like, even though like I should be able to.
Hmm.
I just one is I just haven't had any time lately. But I do want to sit down. There's a bunch of TV shows I want to watch, and I just haven't gotten to them yet. So there's like a lot of really good stuff that like new seasons of shows that I haven't watched yet, like The Boys and Umbrella Academy and what else? Cobra Kai, and there's the new
Yeah.
Batman show that's on Prime, and like I really need to watch a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, TV should not be this good.
Oh
I
my God, we're
swear to you,
feasting on TV right now. It's
I've never
ridiculous.
watched this much television in my life. In my
Oh my,
entire life, I don't think I've ever seen
oh, I'm
so many
telling
good
you.
shows that I have to watch.
It's so like there's so many good shows. It's
Because as soon as I
ridiculous.
finish one, there's already another one that I need to put on my list and get on. And
Oh, I
The
know.
Umbrella Academy definitely is one of them. I still have not watched that yet. And
Oh yeah,
that's,
that's a good one. Yeah. I've watched the previous seasons of that. I gotta watch this new season.
yeah, that's what I
Um
mean. I've seen
yeah.
all of the seasons
Oh, okay,
except
yeah,
this
yeah.
one that just came
Yeah,
out. And I
same.
mean, but there's
Yeah.
just too much. I mean,
Yeah,
now I've got,
I gotta watch the new season of
Agatha
The Boys too. Yeah, and I'm watching Agatha right now, and yeah, oh my
and then
God.
the
Like,
boys, they already have their spin-offs and they're getting another
yeah, I haven't
spin-off.
even watched the spinoff of that yet,
I
too.
can't.
I'm like, I know. It's ridiculous. Like, there's so much TV.
I'm complaining about first world problems here. I'm complaining
Right?
about having
Right?
cable TV and watching
Yeah,
perspective,
no.
Donna.
Yeah. No, I'm the same though. Like there's so many TV shows. Like I constantly putting new shows on like my watch list because I'm like, okay, one of these days, hopefully I can sit down and watch this stuff because I would love to.
And
But yeah.
Terminator Zero. Oh
Oh,
my
I
gosh, I
still
haven't
haven't
even.
finished that. Yeah, I still haven't even started that one. I know. This is what I'm talking about. I've got
And
no
last night
time.
we just saw that they have on Adult Swim. They have the Uzumaki show, and I got to watch that because that's
Yeah.
just creepy and gross, and I'm ready to see gross stuff. Oh my
Well, and then
gosh.
there's the two shows that Nicholas Winding Refn made, one on Prime and one on Netflix. The one on Prime is Too Old to Die Young, and the other one's Copenhagen Cowboy. Like those look crazy and weird in his weird style. I want to watch both of
Mhm.
those, and I haven't been able to watch either one of those yet. I'm like, ridiculous.
Oh my gosh. So I
I
only
need
have
more
one more
time.
trailer. I know
Yes,
we definitely need to be vampires so we can watch
I'm
all of the
telling you,
shows and
it's
read
the
all
only
of the
reason why I
books.
would become a vampire, so I can live a lot longer, so I can watch all the shit I want to watch and read all the stuff I want to read.
Read all the books and then we can
Oh my
travel and
gosh.
watch and read as much as we
I'm
want.
telling you. All right, vampires, I'm ready. Let's
I
do
mean, if
it.
y'all listening,
I don't want to get older like at this point because like you stay at the age you're at. And if
this
I
is
get
good
any
right
older,
here.
I'm gonna be messed up. So
Yeah.
come do it. Come get me now. I'm at 50. Come on.
We are at that age though. If we sleep wrong or if we
Oh
sneeze a
my
little too
gosh.
hard.
Oh, I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Oh my
Yesterday I wasn't
gosh.
doing anything and I had a weird feel. Here we go on old people stuff. I, I was literally just driving in my car and all of a sudden like my chest started weirdly hurting. It radiated up to my neck and I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, what is that? Is that gas or is that cancer? What is that? You don't know because you're old.
Oh my
It
gosh.
could be either, it could be both.
Oh my god, you just killed me with that. Oh my god. Um
Anyway, what was your last thing?
I can't even focus. So my last thing, I did have one more trailer.
Yes.
Hopefully, if you have not seen this, I think you'll like it. It's a movie called Getaway. Have you heard about this movie?
I don't think so.
Okay. So Nick Frost of obviously all of the Edgar
Yeah.
Wright movies. Did you gasp or do you...
No, I said yeah.
Okay, so Nick Frost and his family, they go on a family vacation to a remote island that just happens to have a serial killer, but they're
Ah.
also very weird islanders who live there. They're doing some very bizarre, almost midsummer like rituals that
Oh.
they just chalk up to. Oh no, this is just our local practice. Oh no, we just do this routinely. And Nick Frost wrote the screenplay. It looks absolutely hilarious because they're such a mom and pop. They call each other mommy and daddy, and it's
Yeah,
just such a weird ass looking comedy film. But
that's
if you get
funny.
a chance, please check it out because that would be my worst nightmare being on a remote island with people that are doing outlandishly weird shit. And there's somebody out there
Yeah.
killing people on top of that. Um, so it's called Getaway. So definitely
Okay.
go and check that out because it is to die for. It's drop dead funny. I promise you.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I know he's in another new movie that's coming out called Crazy
Crazy
House.
House.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
see that one too
I
with
want to see
Alicia
that one
Silverstone.
too.
Yeah.
Like a weird sitcom thing going on, but
Yeah.
he has to defend his house and it looks really bizarre.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely have to check that out. I did see that Nick Frost is actually going to be in the live action How to Train Your Dragon movie.
That makes
He's
perfect sense.
going to be playing Gobber. So I was like, okay, I'm down for that. It looks. I was like, I like the How to Train Your Dragon movies. They're really good.
They're
Um,
cute.
yeah. So I was surprised that they were making a live action series of them. So I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. What's even more interesting is that Gerard Butler is actually reprising his role of Stoic the Vast from that. So he's the only one that I've seen so far who's actually carrying over into the live action, which is
That's
great
kind of
because
cool.
yeah, so it'll be really cool. So all right, yeah, I'll definitely have to check out that Getaway trailer for sure. All right. That's all I have for today. But before we move on, why don't you let everyone know what you've got on your show this week?
Oh, okay. So I'm closing out my September sleeper series with a movie, and I always say this, and then you go, "Oh no, everybody knows about that movie." But it's a 2007 horror comedy called Murder Party, and
Okay,
not too
I
many.
haven't heard too many people talking about this one.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
woo, shoo. Okay, so so this
I've
one
heard
is
a few people,
directed.
but not very many.
So this one is directed by Jeremy Saulnier. He
Yeah.
recently did the
Rebel
Rebel
Ridge.
Ridge that
So
I
good.
cannot get enough of.
It was so good.
It really is. But this was his first movie, and it's low budget, but it is chock full of gore, and it is so fucking funny. It's like a slapstick version of any horror comedy that you can think of, but it's not so much the slapstick, it's just the pretentiousness of the people at this particular murder party, and I could not stop laughing. Trivia fact for you really quickly. The main character in this movie is dressed as a cardboard knight, which is what the character in Scream 6 when they were at the Halloween party and he had the I think it was Ethan, he had the cardboard knight costume on. Do you remember that in Scream 6?
I don't, but
So
I'll
they
have
were
to look
all
it
at
up.
a little party at the frat house, and I think Chad was dressed like a cowboy. I don't know what kind of crap he had on, but his roommate had this cardboard knight outfit on, and that's what it's from this movie, Murder
Oh,
Party.
okay.
So it'll make sense when you look at it.
Yeah.
I know it sounds kind of like what the fuck is she talking about right now, but it'll make sense. Trust me. But it is a hilarious movie, and to see this movie and then see the progression of the rest of his directing, from like Blue Ruin
Yeah.
onto Green Room onto Rebel Ridge, it's like please do another horror comedy. That's all I want from this man. I love his movies, but I want to see another horror comedy now that he has budget and he's got the money. I want to see another one.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think, yeah, I haven't seen Murder Party. I just found out it's on Tubi, so I just added it to my list. Um, and then I haven't seen Blue Ruin. I only just recently saw Green Room.
And what were your thoughts on the Green Room?
I thought it was really good. It was really intense, really good. Um, Definitely. I'd already heard a little bit about it, but not too
Mm-hmm.
much. No real spoilers or anything like that. But I just heard it was like great that Patrick
To
Stewart
me, it was
turned
wild
into,
seeing Patrick Stewart in
yeah,
that role.
in a villainous role like that. Yeah.
I've never been more upset watching a movie and more tense in my life. And Anton Yelchin and Imogen
Yeah.
Poots, they really did their thing in that movie. I was so impressed by them.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen Blue Ruin, you should see it.
Yeah, I just I do remember seeing the trailer for this, so I'm gonna, and I do see that it's on Tubi as well, so I'm gonna add that to my list as well.
I will say one thing about Blue Ruin, and it's not to spoil it, it is not a horror movie, but there are some horrific
Right.
things in there.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed Rebel Ridge. And I liked Green Room, so I figure um I would give these other movies a chance too. Yeah, because yeah, Rebel Ridge was just awesome. It was such a really good.
It was so much
It was
fun.
so
Oh my
good.
gosh.
And it's always so funny to see all the people who just don't get the point of the movie. So like there's so many people who were like, he should have killed all the cops. No, the point was he wasn't supposed to kill all the cops
Yeah,
because
the
that would have
point
just
was
made things worse.
he didn't
So
have to. It was
yeah,
that was that was the best decision I thought he could have made with that movie, because we always see the action movies where they kill everybody in the town,
yeah,
but we really want to see them behind bars. We don't we don't want to see them dead. We want to see them get their justice. So
yeah,
um
absolutely.
and if Aaron and now Aaron Pierre is, in the talks to being, I think, in the Green Lantern movie, like they're swapping
Oh,
him and another
that's cool.
person. I would prefer him in Marvel, but that's okay.
Right,
I'm just saying, if you're
right.
gonna do it, put him in a Marvel movie. However, I'm a little biased on that. You already know how I feel about that.
Yeah,
But that's what I'm talking about this week. So come and listen to me talk about Murder Party. It's gonna be really short because that movie is only 80 goddamn minutes. So
yeah, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, now you got me thinking about Aaron Pierre being in Marvel. Like I'm like, look, I liked Mike Coulter's Luke Cage, but like make Aaron Pierre Luke Cage now. That'd be cool.
yeah,
I'd be down for that.
I would totally put my money down for that. And he's a good looking
Yeah.
dude, don't get me wrong. But
Yeah.
he acted the hell out of
Dude, he's got
that
such
role.
intensity in that role too. It's like, man, he's just
The
like,
range, he's
yeah,
angry, he's vulnerable. You get to see him
yes,
grieving, you get to see him like actually planning, and this is what he does. And it's
yeah.
like, you fuck with the wrong. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go on a tangent about Rebel Ridge. Let me stop. We need to just talk about that one day.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh.
That's funny. All right. Well, I added Blue Ruin to my to be list, but it expires in 2 days, along with a whole host of other movies that I have on my list, which I'm probably not going to be able to watch in time. So I guess I'll have to catch that someplace else once it pops up someplace else. Although it could pop back up on Tubi anyway. So
Yeah,
uh,
they do that
yeah, they
notoriously.
do.
So
Yeah, it's like it'll be gone in 2 days, and it's like it's back. Um, so, but yeah, all right. We'll definitely go check out her podcast. That is Donna the Dead, THA. So go check out her podcast. I know I told you all this before. Make sure to go check it out. And and make sure to continue listening to this episode, where you'll be able to listen to more Donna, because we're going to continue on our 80s kindertrauma series, and Donna and I are talking about Poltergeist and Ghostbusters. On today's episode, we're continuing our series on 80s kindertrauma movies with an episode on Poltergeist and Ghostbusters. Joining me for this episode is my great friend Donna from the Donna the Dead podcast. Welcome back to the show, Donna.
hey, Robert, thank you so much for having me. This is like the first time in a long time we've done an actual episode together.
um, chronologically, it's not too bad. It's been a while since we've recorded, but the last episode you did was the Black Panther Wakanda Forever episode, which isn't that far back in the in the queue there in the
Hmm.
list. Although, we'll have built up a bunch of minisodes with us anyway. So I didn't know how exactly to do that intro, because like everybody should know you by now anyway. But for first time listeners, maybe they don't know who you are.
They may not, but they will get to
Yeah,
know me. They will get
exactly.
to know
You're
me.
right. So if this is your first time listening to an episode with Donna, you should be aware that we've done plenty of episodes together. She is a regular weekly contributor to the episodes, as you already heard earlier in the episode. And it's just a fun time we have together. And I try to get her on as much as possible because yeah, I like having her on. So that being said, we are in the, doing this series of kinder trauma movies from the 80s, which are movies that weren't necessarily made for kids, but they were kid friendly, not really kid friendly. We wouldn't consider them kid friendly today. They were kid friendly in the 80s, which is really weird. But especially with these two movies, it's interesting because when we get into it, both of these movies were not made for kids at
No.
all. But and I would argue that Poltergeist really, it, I wouldn't say it really hit big for kids because it really didn't. Um, well, maybe it did. I don't know. I don't remember it being huge. I remember it being huge at the time, but not really huge in terms of like kids talking about it. Could be wrong. But Ghostbusters was like a phenomenon, like a cultural phenomenon. Y'all, if you didn't live in the 80s, you don't know just how big
Oh my
Ghostbusters
gosh.
was. So but we'll get into that. So let's go ahead and start off with Poltergeist, obviously, which came out in June of 1982. I've mentioned on the podcast and in other places, most recently on Sledgehammer Horror, that my first horror movie was John Carpenter's The Thing, but I actually think that it ties with Poltergeist because I think that I went to the drive-in with my parents or with my mom. 82 would have probably just been my mom. Um, and so we would have gone and seen this. Um, I think I saw both Poltergeist and The Thing on the same night
Oh
because they both
wow.
came out in June of 1982, one earlier in the month than the other. And so yeah, talking about an
Dang.
intense night of movie watching for an
That's a
8-year old.
great night of movie watching,
No, it
man.
is.
How
It
old were
is.
you?
I was 8.
Oh my God.
I was 8 when these came out. So yeah.
I
So
was at
that's
least in the double digits, man.
yeah. So
Yeah, I obviously, well, I should say obviously, for people who don't know, The Thing is my favorite horror movie, and my
yes.
mother took me to see that one. But we also went and saw Poltergeist too. My mom is so weird. At the time, she loved horror movies, so anytime one came out, we went. And I have very fond memories of seeing Poltergeist because the audience was so great and it was so creepy. And I just remember certain parts of the movie, I remember it hitting and people laughing and being, terrorized by all of the stuff that went down in the Freeling's house. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, this is an interesting movie. I haven't seen it in years. So going back and rewatching it was very uh eye-opening, I guess. Like
Hmm.
I remembered a lot of it, but man, some of those effects, like to me, they still hold up.
Oh yeah.
They're still very frightening in a way that um some stuff just isn't. Some of it's hokey, but a lot of it was very like intense, and I can't imagine the fact that I saw this at 8 years old, and it didn't mess me up. Um, that just goes to show just like at that point I'd probably already seen other stuff that was just as intense.
Yeah, man. 80s kids were
Yeah.
built a little
Yeah,
differently.
we
I mean,
were.
were. I'm sorry. Not to, I mean, we didn't have parents that really coddled us or anything. They just
No.
let us kind of have free reign. And I know we've talked about this before, but by the time you were 8, you may not have had cable in your house, but I know I definitely was. We had like the very beginnings of cable, so I was
Right.
already watching stuff I had no business watching
Yeah. We
at a
didn't
very early age.
we didn't I don't remember having cable, but we might have, let's see, 8 when I was 8, I guess that would be right around the time that my mom met my dad. So
Hmm.
it's my adoptive dad. Um and which at the time he would have been a stepdad. Um but we I know that we had um cable after a certain point because I know my parents started recording stuff off of HBO and
Hmm.
stuff. So I do remember that we they recorded a lot of stuff onto VHS tapes. We had like I don't know how many VHS tapes, like 3 movies on each tape. And so there was a lot of that growing up. So yeah, I don't. So I know we had cable at some point. I don't know that we always had cable,
Hmm.
but I know that we did have it off and on, and we had the VHS tapes, and I would watch those. But we only had like the one VCR and stuff. So it was always kind of like iffy on whenever I got to watch stuff. So but yeah, no, it was yeah, the 80s were a trip. And that's why I kind of like really wanted to go down on this path of the
Hmm.
kinder trauma movies, is because it's really like I wanted to highlight these movies that were like not really for kids, but were kind of like at the same time they were like, because this was the interesting thing about this movie is this is a Stephen King or Steven Spielberg movie. He produced it. He didn't
Hmm.
direct it. He was originally supposed to direct it, but because he was directing I think E.T. at the time, he couldn't direct two movies because that was Directors Guild rules, is that he couldn't direct two movies at the same time or within a certain amount of time from each other or something like that. But he was he ended up having Toby Hooper direct it.
Hmm.
And Toby Hooper, of course, is most famous at that point for having directed the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And um, so interesting choice of a director to use, somebody who's done one of the early slasher movies. And so it's interesting to choose him, but from all accounts, Spielberg was on set for almost every day, and giving input and everything. So much so that there is a lot of stories,
Speculation that
speculation that
yeah,
he is the true director of it.
which I
Now,
think is crap. I think
it is
that's
crap.
terrible.
It is crap because there's a lot of the actors who've gone on record, and Spielberg himself, because of those rumors that came out immediately in the aftermath of the movie coming out, he put out like an open letter to Toby Hooper saying, you were the director, blah blah blah, because
Right.
they didn't want to have any issues with it. So, and here's the thing: it was Toby Hooper's first studio film. He was probably and Spielberg was excited to make this
Hmm.
movie because I think there's something Spielberg wanted to do, kind of horror at times. He's always, you can kind of see there's a horror tinge
Right.
some of his work. I think he always wanted to do something like this, but um he didn't have like he'd already made a name for himself as kind of the family friendly guy at this point,
Hmm. And
like
doing more
somebody who didn't.
suspenseful stuff, not so
Yeah.
much the horror.
Yeah, and so I think that was part of it. And so I think there is a I think that ultimately what it comes down to is that it was a collaborative effort between the two
Hmm.
of them. Toby Hooper um is the guy who directed it, was on set saying action and cut and everything like that. But like Spielberg was behind the scenes a lot, giving a lot of input.
Well, I
Um
mean, it's clearly obvious in this film there are a lot of Spielbergisms that we all are
right.
familiar with, and that's fine. But I always hate when people just negate Hooper like that because
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, yeah, that's a very creepy and scary slasher film. But once again, it's a brilliant one because we don't see any real gross violence. It's all kind of played out for our heads to go, oh my gosh, we don't see the hook going through this woman. We just see her expression.
Right.
Same thing with Poltergeist. We get terrified. There was terrifying shit in this movie. We don't really see anything. It's not like we get to see, well, except for the one guy who was in the kitchen, but we don't
Yeah.
really get to see anything too, grossly horrific other than that one scene that I can think of. He's a perfect director for this film. It brings us
Yeah.
all of the scares. We get the Spielbergisms that we like. We get
Yeah.
the humor that we like, and and it all works well. I
I think
do,
I think that's where it comes down to it, is it was a great collaboration
right.
between them. And that's like because they both worked on like, the pre-production and stuff, and they both worked on the day-to-day stuff. Spielberg had his input, and you know, I I'm sure Spielberg had a heavy hand in the input as
Hmm.
well, because you
Yeah,
can
because I mean,
feel
it was his
that. You
pet
can
project.
yeah,
Yeah, it
you
was
can feel
something
that
he
it was
wanted
a
to do.
huge thing he wanted to do and couldn't do because of the timing and everything. And so I can feel like, sure, he had a heavier hand in that than maybe say something else later on down the road where he was just a simple producer on, like maybe like the Back to the Future movies. But it still is what it's still very much a collaborative movie, I think, in a way that shows that Toby Hooper was definitely doing stuff, because you look at this movie and you look at something where he did Life Force a few years down the road.
Hmm.
Life Force is they have similarities. Like not big similarities, but you can feel like he took the experience from making Poltergeist and kind of pushed some of that into Life Force, like with the effects and everything
Right.
else. And so I do feel like, that was where it kind of went to. And so I do want to put that, at least put my own opinion on that as and your opinion on that I do believe that Toby Hooper was the director. Just Spielberg had a heavy hand in helping get it made. So
Exactly. I totally agree with
um
you on that.
so I mean it was collaborative. Like at the very most, I would say they were co-directors at times, but I don't even think it was that. I think Toby Hooper fully directed it. Just Spielberg gave a lot of input and helped him get the movie made. So and I think that was all it was. Because I mean, you gotta imagine that Hooper was kind of like, you know, doing this and everything and was excited to do it and everything like that. But there were probably moments where he was like, hey, I need a little help. This is a big movie. This is bigger than I've
Right.
ever done.
Exactly. He
You
doesn't
know?
want to flop on a big studio movie,
Yeah.
its first big one.
Yeah.
Um, but it is great. I know that they do that with a lot of actors, or excuse me, a lot of directors with other, like, Nia DaCosta and Candyman and Jordan
Yeah.
Peele. I mean, come on, that's her movie. We know that
Yeah.
that is inherently this woman's
Oh
movie.
my gosh. And there's
Um,
questions about that too. Like I've heard people question, well, did she really direct all of that, or was that um or was it is it just Jordan Peele's like 2.5 movie? And no, it is not Jordan Peele. He
yeah,
he co-wrote it and he produced it, but that's a need to cost movie. It doesn't feel like a Jordan Peele movie to me.
no, not at all. It is
It
so disrespectful, man. I
it
mean,
is
just
so
because they lend
disrespectful.
their name
Yeah.
and they lend maybe some advice, like you said, some creative advice, and then go about your business and handle your
Right.
business and direct your movie.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
pretty much it.
Yeah. So I just yeah. Yeah. I wanted to put that to bed before we moved on.
Yeah.
um yeah, just getting into the whole thing about it. Obviously this story is about, a family that's dealing with a malevolent spirit who has invaded their house, and is wreaking havoc, first by uh kind of talking to the youngest daughter, and just kind of doing some crazy shit, and I love how like it starts nice and simple. It's creepy, things are going on, and then the mom discovers that there's this the that the spirits or whatever, the TV people, as the youngest girl calls them, is moving stuff around, and then like has experimented so much that she's got this whole setup in the kitchen, um later on to move things across the floor. It's hilarious.
I
um
actually love this part of the movie
yeah.
because any other sane, let me just say it from my Black woman perspective, if it was my mother and that shit was going on in my house, we were out. There was not going to be any let's try and go and glide Donna across the floor
Yeah.
bullshit. My
No,
mom was gone.
I think any sane person's just gonna be
It's
like,
not
yeah, this is
normal.
weird. We need to get out. Like this is not something fun to do. Like this is weird. This is unnatural. We're
I
gone.
mean, I love her though because I love how excited and giddy she is about it.
Yeah.
But she, there's a clear contrast between Diane Freeling and Stephen. Stephen is looking on this floor like, okay, what is going on? I mean, he
Yeah.
literally looks rattled as a sane
Well,
person
yeah.
would be. And she's just all like, well, we'll just get Pizza Hut, telling the
I
kid
th- to
and
be
just
fair,
going on
I
about her
think she
business.
might have still been high from the night before. Because there's a scene from the night before where they're the couple, the parents are sitting there just smoking pot in their bedroom, and just it's
And
just
that's
it's go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was just gonna say that's one of the things I absolutely love about this family. Here they are, suburban as they could possibly be, possibly a Republican family from
Right.
Stephen reading the Reagan
Yeah.
book, and they're casually rolling a joint, and
Yeah.
everything is right with their world, but for some reason, this woman. Like you said, she may still have a little residual from the night before. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Well,
she's just so excited because there's some, unexplained phenomenon in their house.
right. I kind of get the feeling that the characters are meant to be like the parents, at least, are meant to be kind of like ex hippies turned yuppies, in a way. You know, that
Oh,
that that that
definitely.
hippie to yuppie thing that happened to people in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and it's just but it's funny. I mean, for a couple that is like, you know, still fairly young,
Hmm.
mid 30s, I think they've got a 16-year-old daughter. I think the boy is 10, and Carol Ann's like what, 6, I think.
5 or 6, yeah.
5 or 6, yeah. I mean, uh, seems like she's not old enough to go to school yet, which is weird. Because she just spends all day with mom. Um, while the other two go off to school.
Right.
So yeah, so but it's an interesting thing. We need to, we'll definitely have to get into the oldest daughter too, because like this movie, this series has a lot of tragedy surrounding it. There's this whole series of movies has like a curse around it, from what a lot of people think, because of a lot of the deaths that happen in and around the production.
Hmm.
So, but it's well, let's just get into it because I got to tee it up. I got to talk about it. So, the oldest daughter, Dominique Dunn, she ends up, after, like, literally, like, after the movie. I, I don't even know if it had come out yet. But the same year the movie came out, she's murdered by her boyfriend.
Right.
Um, and it was a big, big, huge deal. Um, and she there were a lot of onset accidents that happened during the course of this movie. And let's see, sorry, yeah, so it was, yeah, she died after the movie had come out because
Hmm.
she died on October, it looks like October 30th.
It's
Yeah.
kind of ironic too that she was in this very iconic horror movie and her brother was also in an iconic horror movie in America Werewolf in London.
Oh, is she Griffin Dunn's sister? Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. I did not know
yeah.
that. Oh, interesting. And her father is Dominic Dunn, who
The
is a
writer.
famous writer.
Yeah.
Did not know that either. Interesting. Um, that's pretty crazy. Um, so yeah, and then Heather O'Rourke, or Heather, is it Heather O'Rourke or Heather O'Rourke?
No, it's Heather O'Rourke. You're
Yeah.
right.
So she, the girl who played Carol Ann
Carol Ann.
in all three of the Poltergeist movies, she died during the filming of the third movie. So they ended up having to use a double for some of her scenes later on. Um, but yeah, so it's there's a lot that goes into all of this, in terms of just how cursed this movie series is. It's pretty crazy. Um, so definitely there's a lot more. I don't want to get all into it, but it's a huge amount of stuff that happened. I think there's a series on Shudder about
Oh yeah, Cursed Films.
cursed films and stuff like that, and Poltergeist is, I think, the first episode of it.
It is, and it's
Because
something.
it's that big. It's like
Yeah, if you
that.
guys really want to hear everything that happened,
Yeah,
definitely go watch that because
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
lot.
yeah,
To
yeah.
say the least, it's a lot.
Yeah, no, it's quite a bit. But yeah, no. So, but the movie itself was a hit. It did really well. It's interesting too because this movie, originally the MPAA gave it an R rating, and then Spielberg, of course, being Spielberg, successfully got it brought back brought down to a PG. I think today it would be a PG-13.
It would definitely be PG-13
That
because of that
it,
one scene that I was talking about with the guy in the kitchen, and we'll get to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and it did not, like, yeah, and that's the thing, for a PG movie, it is not a PG movie. It is not family friendly, and PG is like, you know, parental guidance suggested because there's some intense stuff. This is really intense at times. This is like definitely more than a PG, probably not as much of an R, but it really skates that R.
Oh, very
In my
closely.
opinion,
Yeah.
there's a lot in this that is just very scary. There's some gross imagery. There's just a lot. You know, some other gross imagery that I need to bring up was the grossness of the construction guys catcalling the 16-year-old
What the
daughter.
hell,
I was
man?
just like, and the parents didn't call it out or anything like that. The girl
She
holds her own and flips them off and everything
She
like that.
does,
But it's
and maybe that once again, going back to the 80s, it was a different
my
time
God,
because
yeah,
JoBeth Williams, Diane is just watching from the window and
watching and
she's smiling when her daughter flips them off. She doesn't go out there and say, "Hey, that is a child," nothing. She was
yeah,
just kind of like, "Oh, she can handle herself," which
yeah,
that's how it was in the 80s. I'm sorry to say, that's problematic right there.
yeah,
Just like, "Oh, I love you. They're saying all of these things to a child. She is on her way to
yeah,
school, sir.
yeah, yeah. And these men are like grown ass in their 30s and 40s men. Like yeah, it's
I would have
gross.
had to go out there and whoop somebody's ass if they was talking my dog.
Right?
I'm sorry, sir.
No,
Come and do
so
your
gross.
job and go home, okay?
Right? Oh, yeah. So, but yeah, no, there's a lot in this movie. Um, it's just, yeah, it's kind of like I know I'm all over the place with this movie.
That's okay.
Part of it's because I'm tired. And part of it's just it's been so long since I'd seen the movie, and I just watched it last night, and so I'm just like, okay, it's a jumble. But it's I think it's interesting too because when I was younger, when I was like middle school and high school, I used to study the occult and the supernatural and
Mhm.
weird shit like that. Um and so it was something that I enjoyed doing. And I found out about the term poltergeist, which means like a spirit that likes to move objects and stuff like that. That's you know, literally what this was, at least in the beginning.
Mhm.
And sometimes that poltergeist is connected to a teen girl, usually going through puberty. So it's sort of like telekinetic stuff, like um, that she's not doing controllably. It's like out of her control. So I found it interesting that there was a teen girl in the house and everything like that. They never make that connection, but it was something had read during that time period that I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Um, and so it's just something that I thought was interesting to remark about
And it was
because
kind of weird too because the older daughter, she's seen more as a really, really side character. Like we see
very
her
side character.
like maybe a whole 30 minutes total in this movie, if that
I don't
long.
even think that. She's
And
gone for large stretches of it.
yeah,
So it's interesting too because she's not even in the second one. Obviously, one, the actress had died,
right.
and they did bring everybody else back for the second one, but but they excuse that by saying she's off away at college,
Mhm.
and so it is funny that they're just like, yeah, we're not really gonna worry too much about her. We're gonna just put the other two kids in peril all the time, and yeah, it was weird to have her. It's like almost like why even why even write her in? Could have just written her out and everything would have been fine. She really doesn't do much even when she is there. So it is a little weird. Um, but yeah, no. Early on in the movie, Carol Ann gets taken. It's interesting too. It's been so long since I'd seen the movie. But once the spirits decide to like act up, then one of them or they use the tree to grab their son, and while everybody's distracted trying to grab him, they pull Carol Ann into the closet where I guess the netherworld portal is. Which is just like, okay, so the monster in the closet is literal in this movie. So
Yeah, that couldn't have been good for any kid that went and saw.
right, that was not going to help kids with the monster in the closet nightmares at all, or the kids with like clown dolls
Oh
and
yeah, that's terrifying. I
yeah.
don't have coulrophobia, but I feel bad for
Yeah.
anybody that did and saw that. I'm so sorry. I
I
think I
think
read somewhere that Spielberg actually has a fear of clowns, and that's why.
oh my gosh, that's funny. I think that's funny too, because I think between that and it, I think that's where our whole generation was just like, yeah, we're all done with clowns at this point. Because like clowns were a pretty big thing. We had Bozo the Clown that was on TV for a
Oh, I love
while.
Bozo. Yeah.
Yeah. And they but by the like late 80s, mid 90s, we were kind of done with clowns. You see clown culture just kind of take a back seat to everything else. No, we weren't getting as much of that, except for like, in The Simpsons where it became a joke more than anything else.
Right.
So um, but yeah, it's so this is just so Carol Ann gets taken, and then the parents are just they don't know what happened. I mean, they obviously can't figure it out, and then they hear her voice coming from the other side, and that's when they are like, okay, so we need to get some experts on this. um so they get this crew of supposed experts who've seen some stuff but barely seen some
They
stuff.
saw some stuff. They hadn't seen shit until they got to the Freeland's
Yeah,
house.
because they were like, yeah, we
Literally
saw this car that moved 7 feet in 7 hours, and
in 7 hours.
you couldn't tell because we had to use a stop motion camera.
I
And then
love
they're
it, and
like,
Steven's face is like, "Uh-huh," and then he
uh-huh,
opens the
opens
door.
the door and full on chaos is going on, and they're so hilarious. I love that.
His
uh,
expression, Craig T. Nelson's expression on that scene is to die for because he's just
yeah,
like, "Yeah, you hadn't seen some shit, eh? Okay, let me show you some shit."
yeah,
And he
so
hadn't shaved. You could tell he hadn't, probably groomed himself in like days, and he just looked like he hadn't slept more than a couple of hours. Everybody in the house is exhausted.
yeah.
It's a riot because this paranormal team is just like, oh, well, we'll definitely tackle your problem. And then they walk in and they're like, holy shit, you got a fucking problem.
Yeah,
It was very refreshing. I mean, this is like pre Insidious, before we have the whole Lynn Shay and her two young
yeah,
cohorts that are helping her. So it's like we get the wise older lady, and we get the younger guy with the glasses who's clearly some kind of geek tech guy, and then you get Richard
yeah.
Lawson who's like the coolest black dude ever, just hanging out. I literally wanted to have this job when I saw him. I was like, black people can do this. We can we can do this. I shit you not. But then my whole thing was I started thinking about it. I don't want ghosts following me or attaching themselves to me. So maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe that's not a
Right.
job for me.
Yeah, I was never like, hey, let's go investigate ghosts. Nope. Uh but yeah, no, I was just like, they seem like a good crew. They seem very, nice and understanding. They have this nice little conversation at night about, everything. And the the older woman, she's very, nurturing and calm and everything. And which is nice. It does kind of like, slow the pace down. But then there's at a point where they realize, yeah, we're screwed. We need to get some extra help. And you can go into the part now about the one dude. Because yeah, some shit happens to that guy.
Oh my gosh. So this is where the PG rating is like, what the actual fuck? Because with these people staying in their house, obviously they're monitoring everything and they've got all of their equipment set up. And they tell this guy to go, if you're hungry, go in the kitchen, make yourself something to eat. Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to interject. They said make yourself a snack. They did not say bring out a steak and cook
Yeah.
whatever you want in my fucking house. Steak is
Right.
expensive, sir, even in the 80s. And
In the 80s, it was worse. Like it was more expensive. Like my parents, it's so funny too, because like you can go to the store now and get any cuts of meat you want
right.
at the regular grocery store. You couldn't do that back in the
We
80s.
had to
Back
go
in
to a
the
meat
80s,
place.
you had to actually go to like a butcher shop. And my parents would stock up for like the year, and like we had a whole separate
I
freezer.
was gonna say, did you have the one that lifted up like or did
No,
you have? Oh,
we
okay.
had an upright. Yeah, we had an upright
Yeah, we
that
had
was
the other kind. Oh
yeah.
my God.
And that's what people did. They would
Yeah,
buy
you
all
guys
their
don't
meat
know.
for
We
the
had to
whole
go to a separate store, a separate butcher's, like he said, a butcher
right.
shop to
And it
get
was
cuts
wrapped
of
in
meat.
paper
Yeah.
and like it was well, and it was frozen, thankfully.
We're making
But
it sound like we lived in the sitcom, but that's exactly what it
no,
was.
it literally was. Like that's
And you
what's
would fill
crazy.
the freezer for like 6 months and
And
you
you get
won't
like a
eat.
whole side of a cow, like it was steaks and roasts and like all that stuff. It was crazy what you would have to do, and it was expensive. But you would buy it for the whole year basically,
Right.
or at least for half a year or whatever.
It was worth it because it was expensive, but we didn't have to keep going back to, you just take something out of the freezer and thaw it and then cook it.
Yeah,
So that's what angers me the most when I guess because I'm an adult now, when I see this man go into the kitchen and make himself a steak, I'm like, sir,
sir.
making a sandwich is fine. Eggs, perfectly fine. Don't pull out my chicken or steak. I'm sorry. That's too much. But
Yeah.
the scene I'm referring to is that this gentleman goes to make himself a stack, and then the poltergeist decide to fuck with him, and they make the steak crawl across the
Mm-hmm.
counter. That alone was creepy enough. You hear the squelching noises and the meat kind of coming out of itself. And he's got a what is it, a drumstick? He's got like a piece of
Yeah.
chicken in his mouth, and then there are maggots on the chicken and in his mouth. So this guy gets the clever idea to go into the laundry room to wash his mouth out. There was a sink right there in the kitchen, but whatever. He goes into the laundry room, and poltergeists start messing with him. The lights flicker. He starts seeing his face kind of, like there's decay, and then he starts peeling his face to the point where his face is completely just globs of skin that's coming. When I saw that, I was like, holy shit. How did this get PG? How is this a
Yeah.
PG movie? It's disgusting. Even
Yeah.
for me, and I love gross out shit. I was just like, oh no, no,
Yeah.
no.
No, it's bad.
And they're purely just fucking with him because then the lights flash again and his face is back to normal. But
Right.
there was no way in hell he was coming back. He
But
was
he
like,
was
that's
done
it.
at that point. Yeah, that affected him bad enough. He was just like, I need to get out of here.
Yeah, I wouldn't stay after I
Well,
just saw
and
my face come off.
again, they had never experienced anything like this. They were paranormal investigators, but they had done what every other paranormal investigator you watch nowadays does. They go in someplace haunted, nothing fucking
Nothing
happens.
happens.
They
And they're like,
interpret it as something, ooh, there
right.
was something kind of spooky, wasn't there?
They
No,
just
there
write
wasn't.
down, our meter had this many readings on whatever,
This is why I
whatever.
can't watch any of these damn ghost shows. Nothing really ever happens. Like if shit was really happening, maybe then. But no, nothing's happening.
They got their
Not watching
infrared
this shit.
specs and they're going in spooky
Yeah.
places, but
Ooh, look,
literally
there's
we
a
see
heat
like rats
signature
and
here.
bats and then
No,
they go,
shut up.
oh my gosh.
Oh my god. Look, we've got some EVP. No, no,
That's
nothing there.
exactly it. Trust me, if they was seeing some real shit, none of
Yeah,
them would go back to that job.
exactly. Exactly.
He's like the smartest person in this movie because he was like,
Oh,
nope, I'm out.
he noped right the hell out of there. And so the lady and him leave. They leave Richard Lawson's character there to hang out. And then she comes back and she comes back with oh, what's her name? I know you're gonna know her name. What is her name?
Who, Zelda Rubinstein?
Zelda Rubinstein. Yeah, she is well known for this movie. What is her name in the movie? It's
It's
something weird.
something
Tanija?
Tangina?
Tangina? Yeah, Tangina.
Tangina? I don't remember how they said it.
Right. I know. I don't either. It's such a weird name. But she everybody knows who
She's a
she is.
medium.
Yeah. Tangina Barons. I'm assuming it's Tangina and not Tangina because that would just be weird.
I'll call it Tangina all
I
day.
know you will.
But anyway, Tangina is there to give like her real,
She is an experienced medium. She knows some shit. She's been through some shit. And so she's there to kind of like help them take care of this. And she does. She helps them figure out some stuff, gets to the portal, like opens the portal in the closet, which obviously there's a throughway between that and the portal that has opened up above the living room where things are
Mhm.
passing through. And they figure out, hey, yeah, no, things that we throw into the closet come out in the living room, all covered in gross ectoplasm. Um, and I could not like, I don't have very many texture issues, but like that would be a texture issue I would
Yeah,
have. Just like
I can
I don't like gross,
understand.
I don't like gross slimy things. That's my major thing. It's like please don't like gross slimy things. No, no, please don't. I don't like slime. Like kids started making slime a few years ago, and I'm like, I'm not touching that shit. That's gross. I never
Well,
liked slime.
what I love about that part too is that, she comes into the house and yeah, she's diminutive. Being a
Yeah.
small person, I can understand people, looking at you one way or thinking you're one way. And I remember what's his name? Steve. He's like he says something and he kind of mutters it under his tongue, and then she pretty much replies to him, really smartly as to, what he was saying. And I thought that is so clever. Like, she's the tiniest woman, but she knows so much more than anybody in
Mm-hmm.
this house about what's
Yeah.
going on. And she delivers, she gets
Yeah.
she gets Carol Ann back.
Well, she
Mom.
actually offers to go into the portal to go get
Yeah,
her at one point because she's like, "You've never done this before,"
right.
and then and then the mom's like, "Yeah, neither of you," and she goes, "You're right, you can go." So
She's not trying to be that person. She's like, yeah, you're
right,
right. You go ahead and get your kid. I'll stay
yeah,
out here.
right. And then it's over. So then it's like, hey, they got Carol Ann out. Everything's great. The next day, they've got movers coming. They're like, we are out of this place. Um, and they so they kind of settle in a little bit. They're like, look, we're done with this. This is crazy. We're gonna sleep the night, and then hopefully get out the next day. Like I said, they got the movers there and everything. But guess what? It's not over. That spirit is not, even despite Zelda Rubinstein's famous line, "This house is clear."
This house is clean.
Yeah,
It was
it
not.
it was not. It was not. She's a liar. She does not know what she's talking about. Um, she so the house starts to attack and tries to pull the kids back into the portal into the closet. The mom is like in bed and she it like starts getting pulled up the walls and above and on the ceiling, of course done in one of those rotating rooms.
I love
um
those rooms, by
I
the
know,
way.
me too, they're always fun when they do that. um and so she eventually makes her way to the bedroom and grabs the kids and is able to pull them out. But that's when everything goes nightmarish, like fucking. So there was a plot line that we hadn't talked about yet.
Oh yeah, we just kind of
um
glossed over that, didn't
yeah, so
we?
there's a one point where the during the middle of all this chaos, the Steven's boss comes over and is like, hey dude, we know you're going through a lot, but when do you think you can get back to work? um and he's not being mean or anything like that. He's just like, we're on a timetable and you're our best guy, and
I
that's
would have
more
been
it
like,
than anything
fuck
else.
this job. My kids
Right.
was
Well, he does he's like, I told him to go to hell and he's still not taking it, so I'm gonna have to give him directions on how to go to hell. um but during that conversation, they talk about they're kind of wandering around up the hill to a place where they want to expand their housing development to, and there's a big old graveyard there. And he's all like, his boss is like, yeah, we'll just move all the caskets and stuff to someplace else, up the road a bit. And that kind of bothers Steven and everything like that. But he's just like, and he's like, have you done this before? And he's like, yeah, phase one, that's what we did before. There's a whole bunch of graves are down there. We had to move them already. They're all up in this area. Well, guess what? They did not move the graves. They moved just the headstones. Everybody who is still buried in the ground is still
it's
buried
still
there.
buried in the ground. They just built
So
everything on top of it.
and that's what the whole gist of all this is because they built over on top of this. The spirits are disturbed by the living being above them, which, look, for a scary movie, that's a great thing. And they go into expand in this whole story later in the sequels. Because for me, like I get it, it's cool. Like upon being an adult and looking at it like better later, I'm like, why would they even care? Like they long dead. How is it disturbing them to like have their like stuff? You know what I mean? It's just like whatever. I don't know how they would have done all that anyway. They would have had to move all the caskets and stuff, like I would think, to set all the foundations and piping
They
and
would
everything
have
else
to. There's no
that
way
was
they could.
necessary. People's pools and stuff.
Yeah, no.
So they would have had to move all those bodies anyway. There's just no way that, but for story wise, it sounded cool and it makes for a cool visual as all these bodies are popping up out of the like the unfinished swimming pool that the mom gets that falls into,
Falls into,
and
yeah.
and uh and then like caskets are literally popping out of the ground with like the skeletal remains of everybody, and just chaos is going on. Just everything is literally blowing up in this neighborhood. There's no way, there's no way you can put a happy spin on this for this company. This neighborhood is full on erupted into supernatural chaos. I don't know how you cover up that story at all. Like, I don't
I
know how
don't
anybody even
either.
tells that story without like people just not believing it anyway. Like, so it's just crazy.
It's really a kind of a cool little thing too. I never thought about it until I got older, that that whole commentary of suburban life and that cookie cutter life. There's sinister things afoot in those type of places. We just don't realize it. Um, yeah, I'm curious, kind of like how we talked about Eternals, where they had the one Celestial coming out. How did they keep this under wraps
Yeah.
of the birthday name? How did they keep all of that from people from knowing that? Because even as the family is fleeing as their house is eating itself, um, we see other things popping up in other neighbors' yards,
Yeah.
and
It's
so
the
it's
whole
like,
neighborhood.
yeah. So what? And do I still have to pay the mortgage?
I'd be like, nope, I'm not paying a mortgage on this stuff. You guys didn't unbury these things. They're coming back up. They now
Will
live
my
in this
insurance
neighborhood.
cover any damages done by poltergeist? I
Right.
mean, as I become an older horror fan, these things always kind of pop in my focus.
Right.
I will say though, when the family does flee, everybody's gone, and we're out of the clear. That final scene in the movie, I remember everybody erupting in laughter because the
Yeah.
family is exhausted. They get to the hotel room,
Yeah.
everybody goes in, and they're just, the family is drained. They have been through a lot of fucking shit.
Yeah.
And then all you see is the door open and Steven just pushes the TV out.
Yeah.
And it was nice. It was nice to have that. We needed that
You
laughter
needed
after
that
all
little,
of that
yeah.
horrificness we just went through.
Yeah.
It was great. I totally remember the everybody just erupting in laughter. And me being a kid, it took me a second to get it. Like, why would he put the
Yeah.
TV out? How are they going to watch TV? And my mom's like, they're not going to watch TV, sweetie. They don't want anybody coming through the TV.
Yeah. This is how
Oh
it
my God.
started with the
With the
TV
TV
people.
people.
That's so funny. But yeah, so um yeah, so I mean it's a good movie. I'm glad I rewatched it. Like I said, it had been a long time since I'd seen it. So it I wasn't super fresh on it again. So there
I
was a
mean,
lot
it's
of
42 years old, and that movie
yeah,
still holds up like a motherfucker.
it
I,
really
I,
does. And like I said, the a lot of the effects hold up, even like the old 80s animation effects for it. Some of the like the ghostly designs, like that creature that's sitting outside the kid's bedroom
oh, that
door.
one still terrifies
That
the hell
one
out of
is
me.
right, and the big skeleton head that comes out whenever he pulls on the rope and
Yeah,
everything. Like
no.
there's some really, really good, effective, scary imagery in this movie that still holds up, which is surprising. So because there's a lot of 80s effects that don't hold up. So
But this is always a good one to, I mean, like you said, it's not really for kids. I know a lot of people watch this one with their kids as like one of their first like horror
yeah.
movies, just
How
because.
like it's so funny too because I wouldn't even consider this a good gateway horror. It's
I
still
wouldn't start with this one.
very intense. Yeah, it's still very intense.
I kind of do what I default and do what my mom did with me, which is I start with Universal movie monsters and then I move on to
Yeah.
like Frankenweenie and things like that,
Right.
and then go over a little bit more. Monster
Yeah,
Squad, that's a little bit
Universal horror into some Tim Burton because Tim Burton's definitely not really scary. He's more
right, yeah.
silly
And then you go
scary.
into like Monster Squad so that the kids can
Yeah.
kind of identify with the Universal monsters in a different
Yeah.
way, and then you kind of escalate. I don't know if I go right to Poltergeist. You've
Yeah.
got the fear of trees, the fear of lightning, the fear of drowning, the
The
fear of
fear of
clowns.
clowns.
I,
Yeah.
I know the TV
Yeah.
alone.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah. There's so many things that would just like traumatize kids who are already scared of a lot of stuff anyway.
like the
And then to
closet, you
like,
said that
oh, the
earlier.
closet, predatory construction workers. Um,
No doubt. Oh my gosh. It's so funny too, because when I watched this with a girlfriend of mine, like probably a year or two ago. I think it was when it was the 40th anniversary. And she made the comment, she was like, "Oh, well, when they're talking to the paranormal people or whatever, and Steven gives their age, that means Diane was pregnant when she was 16." And I said,
yeah.
"Yeah, no, she wasn't. That's probably not even her kid. Because if I remember the book, I think that's Steven's daughter from another marriage. I
Oh,
don't think
really?
that's her kid."
Interesting. Interesting.
Because
I did not know.
she says my daughter, not or our. No, she doesn't say our daughter. She says my daughter, like an adopted
Interesting.
daughter. So I was like, no, you're reaching now. And even because she is a young looking mom, but that might be his second wife.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the book, it was not her daughter. Like the older one wasn't her daughter.
Interesting. Yeah. I've never read the book or anything, so I don't know. But yeah, no, there was a moment too. There's a moment in the movie towards the end where like the rest of the family is going to stay in the house. The dad's going off to go do something. I don't remember what he was going to go do. But and then the oldest daughter, she was um she was going off, I guess, to a friend's, right?
Hmm.
And but the parents are like, okay, well, we're going to be at this hotel, and the daughter's like, oh yeah, that hotel. Like she
Like she already
recognizes
knew.
the yeah, like she
I
already knew
remember.
about that hotel, and I'm like, why did that necessarily need to like that just like dude, okay, so you're just making it out that the daughter's a trampy girl, like
Apparently.
like come on, like it was just like it was too much, especially after the construction worker stuff and everything like that. I was like, why does that
Why
necessarily
did we
need to
need
be
that?
like
Yeah.
like why?
Yeah,
Just
this movie is
the
wild.
80s,
Like you
man.
said, I would not give this one to kids right off the bat. Maybe when you're a teenager and you're a little older, but
Yeah.
just but it still hits. I mean, it's still a banger of a horror film. They should have never made that abysmal remake that they made. I'm just gonna leave that there.
Yeah.
Um, and I love the actors in that movie, but I can't watch that again.
Which one was it again? I'm sorry.
Poltergeist, they made a remake. I think it was like
Oh, the remake.
2008.
Yeah,
Oh,
with
it was
Sam
terrible.
Rockwell. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Samurai.
I do
I
too.
could.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I tried to watch it and got bored about halfway through. It was just like, yeah, this.
This movie didn't
Um,
need a remake. We didn't really need the sequels. If I could be 100% honest with you, I'm
no,
perfectly
this
fine
was
with
a
just
good
the
one
one.
and done. It would have been perfect. Like, even though like I kind of like that they expand on the story of the bodies and stuff like that and why it
I
was
mean, the
so
second one
why it was
definitely.
why
Yeah.
it was more malevolent and everything like that than you would think. um so it definitely goes into that, which is fine. But yeah, no, I don't think we needed all of it, especially with as much stuff was going on like
Hmm.
in terms of accidents and everything.
And
It
everything
just
that happens. Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, no, I mean, it's a good movie though. If you haven't seen the original Poltergeist, it's definitely worth watching. Um, and it's just another movie that added to our 80s kinder trauma. So, which is why we're talking about these now, is because
Hmm.
this is stuff we watched as kids that messed us up. Uh, so that being said, um, Yeah, let's go ahead and get into Ghostbusters. So yeah, so Ghostbusters, obviously 1984, which 84 was a huge year. Like big year for movies, music, big things happened in 84. It was, I don't know, it was like a weird little turning point in the 80s. Um, but Ghostbusters, apparently this came out the same day as Gremlins, which is bizarre to me. The two, like, because they both became huge,
Yeah.
um like huge in the 80s. Like they weren't just like one was huge and the other was like a little cult hit. No, Gremlins was
No, they both were
big.
huge.
Yeah. And I'm gonna get into Gremlins not as a part of this series, unfortunately, but it will come up again later on in the year. um so but it's Ghostbusters was a, I think most people consider it more of a comedy these days.
They do.
And it was a comedy back then too. It was heavily marketed as a comedy and everything like that. But it's got a lot of good horror overtones. There's some scary shit in this movie that, for 84 was pretty good. The effects and everything in this movie are really top notch. The studio was definitely throwing some good money at this.
Oh yeah.
So, um, and the cast, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and oh my God,
Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson. Thank you. Edward was the name that was popping in my head. I was like, that's not right. I know it's not right. So it's a um, so it's a good cast. Annie Potts, William Atherton, uh, what
Harold
else?
Ramis,
Oh,
Sigourney
I said
Weaver.
Harold. Yeah, Sigourney Weaver, Rick Moranis.
That's what I meant to say, Rick
Yeah.
Moranis.
I was like, I already said Harold Ramis, didn't
You did.
I? But yeah, no, it's got a great cast. This was Sigourney Weaver's first comedy role in a movie. She'd done comedy, I guess, on stage, but nobody wanted to cast her in comedies up until this point, which obviously they were wrong because she's really good. I think this was the first place I ever saw her. I don't think I saw Alien prior to watching this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so it was definitely um, so going back and seeing Alien and Aliens and stuff like that, I was like, oh, okay, I'm sure. Um, I was like, I just know her from Ghostbusters.
Well, I mean, even though she's in a horror comedy, she's still playing it pretty straight. So, it's not
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, she's not hamming it up or anything like that. So, she or but the movie, obviously, I mean, everybody should know Ghostbusters by now. You all know what it is. It's a group of guys who, decide to get together and they're all the main three anyway. Egon Spengler, um, Peter Venkman, and Ray Stantz. They're all guys who work together at this university. They're parapsychologists and stuff, and they want to make it a business. And so that's what they do. They create the Ghostbusters, and they start getting. They actually start busting some ghosts and getting some cred, and it's a lot. It's so funny too because the phenomenon in the movie mirrors the phenomenon of what actually happens in reality. This
mhm.
movie was so big, um, but uh, uh, but they it's it's funny too because this movie started out as something darker and scarier in the original draft, apparently, or one of the early drafts. Because I think even in the original draft, it was set in the future where there were a bunch of Ghostbusters, and like so this was so they retooled it and made it the story of the original Ghostbusters, um, how it started out and everything, and so it's much more ambitious in the original version. But so and then so there were a couple of cast changes from what it was originally supposed to be. John Belushi was originally supposed to play Peter Venkman, but during the writing of the movie is when John Belushi died, so they
Mhm.
ended up getting Bill Murray. And Winston Zeddemore, his character was originally slated to be Eddie Murphy,
But
but
he was doing Beverly Hills
he
Cop.
decided to do Beverly Hills Cop instead, and so they got Ernie Hudson and they cut the character way back. So because he was supposed to be a major part of the movie, he had a lot more screen time um earlier on. And so when Eddie Murphy bowed out, they cut the character down a lot. Um Much to everybody's chagrin. And Ernie Hudson, he's very happy that he did the movie and everything
Mm.
like that. It helped his career a lot, but it also was just kind of like one of those things where he didn't get a whole lot to do. And you can see it on the screen when watching it nowadays. You're just like, man, he really does not get a lot for as big of a character as we all think he is these days in the movie. He's barely in it. It's mostly the other three guys throughout the whole thing. And I mean, to be fair, he is a hired hand. He wasn't part of
Right. He comes on
crews.
later on anyway
Yeah,
as they're starting to get a little bit more business going. So,
yeah,
it makes sense.
yeah,
And I'm just happy that they were inclusive and they had somebody of color on the
yeah, yeah,
Ghostbusters because it makes it different. It's almost like us coming in and working at this job. It's just like anybody else off the street working this
yeah,
crazy job that it had never existed before. Um,
yeah.
so I like his viewpoint of it because he brings
Right.
more of a kind of realistic, even when he goes to get the job and he's like, man, if it's got a steady paycheck,
Yeah.
I'll believe
She's
in whatever
asking him
you
if he
say.
believes in all this crazy stuff.
Right. Do you believe
He's
in
like,
Bigfoot, Loch Ness
yeah.
monster?
He's like, look, if it's got a paycheck, I'll believe anything you want me to believe.
That's
And so,
right.
and he brings, yeah, you're right. He does bring a unique perspective to it because he's not a scientist like the rest of them. He's just
Right,
like an
and they're
everyman.
just they've already started this together, and it's
Yeah.
great to see it from that viewpoint because hell, if you want a job, look, just tell me what to do. Just
Yeah.
tell me
Well,
what
and
to do,
he's
let me
the
do it.
everyman part of the group too, who they have to explain things to because he doesn't know what's going on. And so that helps the audience also because then they have to explain it in a way that works for the audience.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
and so, going back into like the whole Twinkie scenario and stuff, that's one big Twinkie. Um, but so it's great it's a great role for that. He gets to inject that part of it into it, which helps in a lot of way. And I think, yeah, I think it would have been great to have him more in the movie, but I think it works well enough on its own. And I I haven't seen number two in a while either, and I don't know how much more his character is in that one. um I think
He's
it's a
in it a
little
little
bit,
bit,
yeah, a
pretty
little
much
bit more,
equal to
yeah,
everybody else
yeah.
in that one, but it's not. I don't know. I'm number two is just not one of my favorites.
Me
Don't
neither. Like,
lie.
there's a lot of people who really love it. Now, I like the song in that one better than the original Ghostbusters song. I like the Bobby Brown
The
song in the
Bobby
second
Brown
one.
one,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I like that song a lot. So I like that a lot more than the traditional Ghostbusters song. But like the Ray Parker Jr. one.
That
Um,
Ghostbuster song is so problematic. Busted makes me feel good.
yeah.
I know my brain
Well,
goes there, and I know it's not meant that way, but I can't help it. It's just wrong. I can't.
well, and not only that, but there's questions about like whether or not it's too similar to a Huey Lewis in the News
I want a new
song.
drug. Yes.
Yeah.
That whole
So
thing. My
yeah,
God.
there's a lot of questionable stuff with that song. So it's just, yeah, no. Um, but like I said, for the time period, 84, like when this movie came out, it was huge. Like I can't even tell you, like it's you like we think of movies today like Endgame and stuff like that. Everybody points to Endgame as being like one of the hugest movies ever. And we talk about movies that make a lot of money. It wasn't about just making money
Mm-mm.
back then. Like there were movies that didn't make a whole lot of money that hit the cultural like landscape in a much bigger way than even just making money. And Ghostbusters was like that. Ghostbusters was a movie that it did make a lot of money, but it also just was like everywhere. Like they like marketing stuff was everywhere, and it led to a whole cartoon where they expanded
Mm-hmm.
the universe and everything.
Cereal and
Yeah,
all of the
cereal.
stuff,
Yeah,
the toys. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah. It was just
It
everywhere.
was everywhere. People were selling bootleg t-shirts of the Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
It
they
was
were.
it was nuts. And I know for a fact I saw this movie probably about 5 or 6 times because I went with my parents, and then my aunt wanted to go, so I went with my aunt. You know, anytime anybody in my family said, "Do you want to go see Ghostbusters?" Yes, I do. I want to go see Ghostbusters. And so every time you would go to a showing, it didn't matter if it was a matinee, it didn't matter if it was nighttime. Those shows were packed, and I
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
packed. It was ridiculous how crazy this film was and how it took
Yeah.
off. Um, and then it's another one that you would think it would be for kids because they're kind of bumbling. The three main
Mhm.
guys are bumbling and they're
But it
doing all
wasn't
of these
made for
things.
kids. They literally like I was just reading it too. This movie was not made for kids, even though like like kids responded well to it and loved it. It
Hmm.
was not a movie made for kids at all.
No,
There's definitely a lot more innuendo going on in this. Now,
a ton.
When they made Ghostbusters 2, they at that point they knew how much it had resonated with the kids, and so they
They
made that
toned it
one, they
down.
toned it down. And I think
Yeah.
that's part of where like Ghostbusters 2 doesn't really work for me as much, is because it gets toned down. Like a lot of the rough edges get sanded down, and it's more silly and goofy and stuff, and it's fine. I don't hate it or anything like that, but I don't like it as much as I like the first one.
I mean, the first one, there are tons of my wildly inappropriate things going
Yeah.
on in this film. From the very intro, when we see Venkman and he's doing the little tests for the college
Right.
kids,
Yeah.
and he's doing this all to get into a female college college student's pants. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, bro, she's a
Yeah.
student.
Yeah.
What are you doing
And he's
here?
like 50 already. I mean,
He's got to be pushing 50 at this
I'm
point.
pretty sure he wasn't that old, but man, does Bill Murray not look young ever.
It's all the drinking, dog. You got to
I'm
stop off the
telling you.
drinking.
Yeah,
But it's just so weird that that is how
he
we
was
see the beginning of the
he was
movie.
only 34 at
Oof,
that
that's a
point.
hard
Right? That's a
34.
hard
Jeez.
34, man. Oh,
Wow.
he looks old. I'm 50 and he looked older than me at that time.
Yeah,
So,
that's messed up. He really does. Ooh, my
yeah,
God. Thank God I don't drink. Um
right?
so, uh so we have that introduction to Venkman, and then when we get Sigourney Weaver's character, Dana comes in saying, she's seen this growling dog in her refrigerator. He's the first one that wants to go back to her apartment to check it out.
Yeah.
And he's making all of these comments in her house. Oh, you live alone, you sleep alone, oh, that's a shame, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
dude,
Oh man,
you are literally supposed to be
the
doing
eight
a job.
the 80s, like you go back and there's so many movies from the 80s where you just like one, like you can't especially movies that you used to love as a kid,
Yes.
and you go back and now and you're just like, oh my god, this movie is terrible. Now Ghostbusters isn't like that. Ghostbusters has a few questionable moments, but they're not that bad really.
No, they're not. I'm making it sound like it's
No,
terribly,
yeah, yeah,
terribly
yeah,
bad,
they're
but
not,
it's
but
it's
like,
just questionable
yeah,
for kids. The
yeah.
dream sequence with Ray, when they start like
Oh,
really.
that's not a
Excuse me, I
dream
have to
sequence, come
cough a
on.
second. Let me
Yeah.
mute myself.
Yeah.
So sorry, my voice was going
No,
like
you're
really
fine.
froggy.
Well, and that was
So
not a dream sequence. He is literally being like molested by a ghost.
the ghost when and it's pulling his pants off, and then he makes the O
The
face that he
Yeah,
makes, and I'm just like, okay, whose child was sitting here wondering why he took his pants
you're right.
off? I mean,
Mommy, why is he making that face?
there's just so many things. Like when I go back and I watch it now, I'm just like, wow, I can't believe that they
Yeah,
got away with that. And of
right?
course he falls out of the bed because he's dreaming. Sure he is. Um, Here's the most problematic thing for me, and I may be reading too much into it because I'm older now. There is a scene where he goes to Dana's apartment, and we've skipped all over this goddamn
Oh,
movie,
we
but
have totally.
so the Ghostbusters, Dana is the nice lady who hires them because she saw some entity in her fridge, and then
Right.
they
And it yelled Zool at her. Zool.
right, and so they did research and they found out that she's actually what did they call it? Spook Central.
Yeah, yeah. The building is
The
like,
building.
yeah, the building she lives in has a lot of, it was made as a conduit for spirits to come through.
why would they want to bring about the end of the world? I mean, I know the world sucks, but
Right.
I think it's worse now than it was in the 80s. So what were they doing? Anyway, he goes to her apartment and she's possessed, I guess, by one of
She's
the
possessed by Zool at that point.
ghouls. That's right, the one that
Yeah.
was in her fridge.
Yeah.
And so she starts floating above her bed and rotates a little. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. The next scene, we see Peter and he's talking to, I think, Egon and explaining that, he's hit her up with like 20 cc's of Thorazine or whatever.
Yeah.
When did he have time to go and get that? Did he just
Apparently
have
he
that in
had
the
it in
pantry?
his bag. So yeah, no,
What?
I did read that. Like people were like concerned about it because Thorazine later on was used for bad intentions. But
Yes.
literally at the time, though, during the 80s, it was known to help stop people from having fits and stuff like that. That's why, like, you got to put it in context in
Hmm.
terms of that, like, and that again, things that are problematic now weren't as problematic and also sometimes had different meanings in context.
I mean, I'm hoping
So
that was the case.
well, and that's the thing. You don't ever see him do anything. He kind of kisses her hand and kisses her
he's
shoulder a
he's
little bit.
harmless at best. He's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
over
He like, and that's the
flirtatious.
thing. Well, and that's the thing too. When she starts as Zool, when she's possessed, she starts coming on to him. He doesn't go for it. Like he definitely is not like trying to take advantage of the situation.
No,
He
I
could
mean, he
easily
kind of
have,
does at
but
first, and then he makes a joke, and he's like, "No, no, no, I can't."
yeah. But yeah, so it's it's iffy, don't get me wrong, but it straddles that line of just barely being on the side of okay.
He's
Um,
harmless. He
yeah,
really is.
yeah,
It's so funny too in this movie that poor Rick Moranis is like clearly in love with Dana or
yeah,
infatuated with her, and she won't give him the time of day. And then they end up being two of the people, the gatekeeper and the keymaster.
yeah,
I'm like, the one time he's able to make out with this woman, he's never gonna remember this. He's not
right,
even gonna know that he did this. Like,
yeah,
poor guy, it's terrible.
yeah, it's yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, no, it's definitely not a it's definitely not a Revenge of the Nerds or 16 Candles situation where you can't even watch those movies anymore because yeah, those movies are just terrible.
Yeah, no, I can't
They
watch those.
No, those I literally you cannot watch those movies anymore. And if you do,
I loved Revenge of the Nerds,
oh,
but
me
then
too.
you're like,
Yeah, when you get
that's
older, you just
really
realize just
bad.
how bad that movie is.
You didn't
And
have any consent to do that, sir.
same with 16 Candles. Like 16 Candles has some very problematic issues in it. Between, rape and racism and everything else going on in
Oh
that movie. I'm
gosh.
like that yeah, like I like Christopher Columbus, or not Christopher Columbus, John Hughes. I like John Hughes movies, but like man, that one did not age well
Did not
at
age well at
all.
all. Oh my
Um
gosh.
yeah, so yeah.
But
But
once
yeah,
again, people were going to see Ghostbusters, and I mean, it's fun. It was fun. Like
oh,
you said, there were some
excuse me.
really creepy special effects in this one. The one that comes to mind to me the most is the cab driver. When the guy gets in the cab and there's like a almost like a zombified skeleton driving the cab, and I was just like, oh my god, that's really gross. How did they do this?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's there's great practical effects in this, great visual effects. The animated effects, because we weren't really doing computer effects. There was no CGI at the time.
Hmm.
But it was getting closer. They were doing stuff with computers, but I don't think really much of it was used here. But definitely some of the lighting effects and everything in this movie are really
Hmm.
fantastic. Um, and the creature work in this is really good. Obviously the terror dogs, they are stop motion,
Right.
um, except for when they're stationary, which is great. When they're stationary, they're really good.
Yeah,
Um,
they look very creepy.
yeah. So it's yeah, no, there's a lot of really good makeup effects. The librarian ghost is terrifying. Just lots of really good stuff in this
And
movie.
everybody's favorite Slimer. Oh my gosh,
See,
that
I
whole
never I
scene.
never dug on Slimer, man. I just like I know he was like the thing that came out of it, and everybody's like, and especially for the cartoon, because the cartoons where they named him and
Cartoons, they just
everything.
made him like a little dog, you know?
Yeah.
He's just like the station
So
house
yeah.
dog.
So it's just yeah, no, and that's what's funny too, is like because we get the whole he's slimy bit. That's actually that part of the movie was actually supposed to be a moment where if Eddie Murphy had been in the movie, it would have been Eddie Murphy who would have gotten slimed. So it's like I really kind of want to see that movie with Eddie Murphy as part of the crew. Like, just man, that would have been an interesting movie. Not to take away from Ernie Hudson, but to see a movie with Eddie Murphy interacting with that crew would have been fantastic. So, are you there?
No, I'm still here. I'm just
Okay.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
I think you would have to mind wipe me though before I could see it
Yeah.
because I would be applying every Eddie Murphy thing I've seen to that.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I
But
mean,
yeah,
but you
seeing
also have to
him,
remember that though at that time that's Eddie Murphy at the same time as Beverly Hills Cop. So like he hadn't really hit like full Eddie Murphy yet.
that's true.
So,
That
it
is
would have been
true.
that same year. So, but yeah, no, I mean, it would have been interesting. But I think that, it's great the way it is. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want to take away from Ernie Hudson at all, because he's great in the movie. I think he does something there that Eddie Murphy couldn't have done, so the Ernie Hudson, like we said, brings that kind of everyman quality to it that Eddie Murphy just could not do.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think too, also with Bill Murray, I think a lot of Bill Murray's lines were improvised, and I think we probably would have gotten a lot of that from Eddie Murphy too. And I don't know if I could handle both of them improvising and kind of
yeah.
riffing all the time. You know
Well,
what I
and
mean?
apparently a lot of the movie is improvised. It's
Yeah,
not
that
just
makes
Bill
sense.
Murray, but like a lot of the movie has a lot of improvisation to
Yeah,
it.
it makes perfect
Yeah.
sense between the three of them. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
Ramis
there's
and Murray had already worked together anyway.
right. And Ramis and Aykroyd worked on the script, as did Ivan Reitman, the director. They all kind of helped retool the script and get it to where it is now. So and then Bill Murray came in and just kind of improv like a bunch of stuff. Like pretty much every line he did was improvised.
I mean, it
So
comes across that
it
way.
really
I mean, it
does.
works,
Yeah.
It's just little things that he does in that movie. It's a crack up, and
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it works. And it was at a time where we needed to see something that was a lot of laughs and just ridiculous. Horror comedy is probably the best way to sum it up. But like once again with the kinder trauma, this should not have been one that kids would be
No.
going to, but there was a lot of kids there. I mean, I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about it too, is this just it was one of those things. I think this was one of those movies that because it was PG, it that a lot of parents took their kids to go see it. And it just resonated with kids. It was just a fun adventure movie that even though there were scary moments and everything like that, it was broken up by a lot of very lighthearted
Hmm.
joking and silliness and everything. Kind of the over the top. Uh, there's a lot of over the topness about it that kind of undercut the scary of
Hmm.
it. So
Even when
it's
we got the Stay Puft Marshmallow, when she
yeah,
said, "You've chosen your destroyer," and we're just all like, "Oh, great! What's going to come out of the sky? What's going to come out to eat us?" And then you just
yeah,
see a giant marshmallow
yeah,
man coming. Who cannot laugh at that? I mean, if this is
right,
the way I go out, I have to laugh at it because
yeah,
why, of all things? I mean, it might as well just be like a piece of toast taking me out.
right, right. And it's funny too because apparently that was shaving cream that like once they explode him, that's what it pours on all of them is just like
Right.
shit tons of
Oh yeah, it
shaving
has to
cream.
be because if it was
Yeah,
marshmallows, your skin would be burnt the
yeah,
bits.
yeah,
You can't. Oh my God, you ever burned the roof of your mouth with a
yeah.
s'more?
I do think
It's
it's
got to
funny
be
though
seen.
too when they all come out of it and everything like that. Every single one of them is like covered head to toe except for Bill Murray, and he's like barely got a little bit on his suit and everything like that. I'm like, that is so the most Bill Murray thing ever is just like to come out like relatively unscathed. Like he's just like, oh yeah, I got a little bit on me. They're all covered in it. Well, and apparently Dan Aykroyd loved it so much he was just like, put more on me. So
I mean, but they all seemed like they were having such fun on
Oh
this
yeah.
film, and like, they seem like big kids, you know?
Yeah. I mean, this just, yeah, it's a movie that was made by friends, that, it just, all of them coming together to do a movie. And I love that. I love that when, groups of people can get together and have a good time making a movie. Whether it's successful or not, when you can feel that level of fun and camaraderie, like that just means a lot more than just your cookie cutter you know movie that somebody just churned out and nobody really cared about it.
Yeah, it's a lot
So
more fun. I mean,
yeah,
case in point, Deadpool and Wolverine.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You can just tell people are having a good time, and it just created this huge phenomenon for everybody to just,
yeah,
like you said, it spawned off the cartoons. And I mean, even to the point where we had like what, the extreme Ghostbusters, where they were trying to
yeah,
teach younger people how to do the
right,
Ghostbusting, and now we've got the sequels that have been out. It's
yeah,
it's one of my favorites, and I'm glad that I got to witness it in theaters
oh
and
yeah.
live through that whole time. But yeah, these are definitely movies that when you look back at it now, you're like, why was I even allowed to see this movie?
Yeah, and I consider this an 80s kinder trauma just because, yeah, it does have some scary moments. I don't think it's nearly as scary. I think most kids came away from this one more excited than they did scared,
Right,
compared to a lot of the other movies in this. But it's definitely a movie that has those kind of horrific moments that this movie wasn't made for kids. It's a
right.
movie that kids resonated with, but it definitely was not made for them. And in so much so that, like I said, with Ghostbusters 2, they toned it down. Like in this one, Ray is smoking like through it, but in the second one, he's not. They like took out even like minor things like that because they're like, well, we don't want to influence kids to smoke and everything. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think Ray and Ernie Hudson, they were smoking like
Yeah, they were both
chimneys
smoking.
in this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah, yeah,
What the hell?
yeah. Oh, too funny. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's great. We get William Atherton in one of his great villain roles
His
as the
assholey
yeah,
roles. He's
yeah,
oh, he's the best asshole in every
yeah.
movie
Well,
that
and
he's
it's
in.
so funny too because apparently after this movie, like people were literally harassing him. And like kids, like he said, apparently kids from some school bus were yelling out the windows and calling him dickless. Like I'm just like, and so he hated it. He hated it because he's just like, this movie is like sucked. And then he goes on to play more villains in Real Genius and then the Die Hard movies.
But
So
look
it's
at
like,
his face, though. He's just got a face that.
just got a really punchable face.
But if we really think about Ghostbusters from an adult level,
Right.
that man was just doing his job as an EPA person.
He
He
was
wasn't
to an extent, but
he
also
wasn't
he
really
was,
trying to do anything wrong. He just wanted to make certain that everybody was safe. The man really was doing his job. He was just
yeah,
a dick at doing
yeah,
his
but he was
job.
yeah, but he was a dick at doing his job though. So I mean, because he could have done it better. Like, he was like a typical bureaucrat who just comes in, doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, and causes problems instead of, listening to people and understand and trying to understand from their perspective. Like
Yeah,
he could have
literally, if he had just
rather,
come in there and been nice and like
yeah,
maybe thrown some flattery at Venkman, he probably would have shown him anything he
yeah,
wanted to see,
and
you
could have,
know?
and get Spengler to explain to him exactly what's going on instead of like, barreling through. And that was the major issue. He just came in like an asshole.
Yeah.
And he's the reason. I mean, he's ultimately the reason why everything happens because he sits there and shuts down the thing. Now, to be fair, it was already at max capacity
Oh yeah.
anyway, and probably was going to fail soon.
The
You know,
Twinkie, yes, it was the
yeah.
huge Twinkie.
So, something needed to be done anyway, but, it definitely, he exacerbated the situation. So, but yeah. But yeah, no, he plays a great villain. He's great at playing a great asshole. Definitely go check out. I'm sure most people have already seen the Die Hard movies that he's in. But go check out Real Genius too. It's a great movie from
Love him
1985.
in that.
Oh man, Val Kilmer, so good. It's such a good movie.
And it's so funny too. I'm just gonna tie this in real quick. So I told you like I went to Spooky Empire. So of course the
Yeah.
Spooky Empire that they're having in Florida next month, it's gonna have Ernie Hudson. It's going to have William Atherton, Chris
Oh,
Sarandon, and I'm just like, y'all couldn't have done that here in South Carolina.
right.
I would have killed to meet all three of those men in the spooky empire, but no, they're in Florida.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
then
want
the
to make
one
a trip to
person you
Florida.
wanted to see that was supposed to come to yours, you didn't get to see on top of that.
That's okay.
Um,
I wasn't meant to see Malcolm McDowell. I just,
someday you will. I
man,
know.
he's old.
I know, but he's still doing the
I'm
con
trying to
rounds.
see him before he kicks his mortal
I
shuffles
know.
his mortal coil off. Um, but yeah, but I had to say that when you said William Atherton, I was like, man, they couldn't just be at the one at South Carolina. They gotta be at
Yeah.
Florida. I'm not going to Florida. I'm sorry.
No.
That ain't happening.
No. the, the more we stay out of Florida, the better.
Yeah, the drive, that's
Um,
a drive by for me. I can't,
yeah.
I'm not, mm-mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I did one con down there a few years ago and I was like, nah, this is lame. I don't want to go down to Florida again. So.
But yeah, this movie is great. I'm 100% with you. The second one is fine. It's
It's
not
okay.
my
It's okay,
favorite.
but it's not, yeah, definitely like I don't understand the big love for it. Like everybody, like there's a lot of people who've come out in recent years and just been like, oh my God, Ghostbusters 2 is so great. Vigo the Carpathian, blah blah blah. And
The
I'm like,
little, goo stuff and them making the Statue of
yeah,
Liberty walk. It's
yeah,
not for me. It's just
yeah,
not.
yeah. The only thing I really like I said, is the Bobby Brown song from it. So
Yeah, that's pretty
that's
cool.
all I know. Yeah, I mean it's a great song. Um uh but other than that, yeah, it's yeah, On Our Own is the song by Bobby Brown from that movie. But yeah, it's but the first Ghostbusters, classic, great movie. Definitely worth watching. Both of these movies are definitely worth watching. Um, you know, if you haven't seen them, you definitely should, and you can understand why us 80s kids are kind of messed up.
Oh
So
my goodness, that is
uh,
facts.
definitely be getting into more 80s kindertrauma in more episodes coming up soon. Um, but
Please tell me you're going to talk about Gremlins because I want to hear what you say about that.
I will be talking about Gremlins, but it's not going to be part of this series.
Okay.
It is coming up later in the year. I will go ahead
Okay.
and tease that now. I'm actually going to do both Gremlins and Gremlins 2 as part of my holiday episode with the kids.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so that was always the plan, and then this came along towards the end here, and I was like, okay, well, I don't want to do those as part of this because I already had it planned for that. So it'll be
Hmm.
kind of a double thing. It'll be kind of a later addendum to it.
That'll be
But yeah,
fun. I can't wait to hear you guys talk about them.
yeah. I'm excited to show the kids that because I don't think they've ever seen either one of the Gremlins movies, and I loved the first Gremlins when it came out. I was a big fan of that movie. So
I love the
um,
first one, and the second one is growing on me. I've seen that one, but I'm starting to appreciate the second one a little bit more because for the longest, I hated Gremlins too, and now I'm just like, it's kind of not that bad.
I
I'm
haven't
kind of
seen it
digging
in a
this.
long time, so I don't even remember anything about it. So, but yeah, no, Gremlins for sure. Gremlins definitely is a kinder trauma thing that messes us up in the 80s. For one very obvious reason that
Oh
I will
yeah,
get into in that
oh
episode.
yeah, I can't
Um,
wait. I already know what you're
yeah,
talking.
yeah, no, everybody who's seen it knows what I'm talking about. So yeah. Um, but yeah, no, these two movies are really good, Poltergeist and Ghostbusters. I felt they went well together. You know, talking about ghosts, kind of one's more terrifying, the other one's, sort of terrifying but more silly. But yeah, they a lot of fun watching both of these back to back and getting to see how different and how similar they were. But yeah, no, it was really a lot of fun. Do you have anything else you wanted to say about either one of these before we
No, I
wrap
don't
up?
think so. Other than I have a massive crush on Harold Ramis because of Ghostbusters, but I don't know why I just love Egon. He was just so deadpan, and it was
It's so
just.
funny,
I think that's why. I think because everybody else is so animated, and he was just so
right?
by the book, and we need to do this, this, this. And there's this great scene when they get their first ghost when they trap Slimer for the first time, and they come out and they're talking about the prices, and he does
Yeah.
this really cool thing where he makes the motion of like a 4 on the side of
Right.
his face and then the 1, and I was just like, "That is so clever," he said it without saying it, but
Right.
other than that, no. I always have to tell you who my crushes are. I think y'all should just assume that I crush everybody when you hear
Right.
me talk.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's funny too because part of the character that he did for that was that he had made a decision that he was not going to smile as the character ever, and he doesn't in this first movie.
He
Apparently he does.
doesn't.
Apparently he does once in the second movie.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, in this first movie he doesn't smile at all. So it's funny. But yeah, no, it's he's a great character. He's very understated. He's kind of like a he gets his own little laughs in, but he's mostly kind of a straight man in the movie.
Right.
Um, so yeah. Oh man, too funny. Um, but yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. Definitely should check both these movies out, like we said, and let us know what you think about these. Um, Leave us some comments on our social medias and stuff. We'd love to hear about it. That being said, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
So you can pretty much find me anywhere. Twitter, I'm mostly at Instagram, and I have my own podcast, as Robert stated at the top of the episode. Did you state that? You did not.
I did. I did.
Did you? Okay.
Yes.
I'm busting your chops.
I said your podcast at the very beginning.
I'm old and I haven't had coffee yet today. So
Wow. Okay.
oh, sorry. He did. He's always so sweet about saying
I
to
try to.
listen, and I always
Yes.
tell people to come listen to you.
You
So
do.
let's
Yes,
just
you
try to
do.
be good to each other. So
Exactly.
yeah, so I do have my own podcast as I am trying to get out, but I'm failing. It is Donna the Dead podcast. And yeah, I don't know. Like Robert said, just hit us up. I am online if you want to tell either Robert or myself what you think about these movies. If you've seen them, what your experiences were watching them. Because we really want to know. We cannot be
Yeah.
the only people who survived the 80s and
Right.
watched all of these things.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely go check her out. She's most active on Instagram, so go hit her up on Instagram. That's the best place. But she does respond when she sees it on Twitter.
Whenever I go and check
Gotta make
it,
sure
like
you
every
tag
3
her.
days.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I do. That's how I try to make sure she responds as I tag her and things. So
Ooh, sneaky.
yeah.
It works though.
It does work.
Well, I appreciate you having me on to talk
Yeah,
some
of
of the kinder
course.
trauma stuff, and these were two of my favorites. So I'm happy that I was able to do it with you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very much enjoyed the conversation, and can't wait to talk to you again next week on our weekly segment. Thanks for listening. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast is Gratitude, composed by Harper Smith. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.